Moderna closed up 176.97% at $174.38. The most bullish price target on the street after that move still sits 31.2% below the closing price. 3 things this video resolves. Why a bank chief executive sold $12.75 million of his own stock in a single day. Why the Moderna rally broke the analyst model, and why 4 power producers got their targets cut and still carry enormous implied upside. The index tape barely moved. The S&P 500 finished at 7,708.03, up 0.21%. The Nasdaq Composite, 26,331.09, up 0.16%. The Dow, 53,463.05, up 0.22%. The real signal was volatility, the VX at 1489, down 5.99%. That is sellers of protection, not buyers of stock. Underneath, dispersion was enormous. On the Nasdaq, consumer cyclical names averaged plus 2.76%, communication services plus 0.74%, while energy averaged minus 0.43%, consumer defensive minus 0.28%, and basic materials minus 0.21%. Fear and greed sits at 56. Technically greed, but only barely. That is a market leaning long without conviction. Story 1. 207,037 shares. 3 transactions, 1 day. Michael W. Collins, chief executive of Bank of N.T. Butterfield, sold $12,752,151 of stock on August 19th. That works out to roughly $61.60 per share. The structural detail matters more than the headline number. It was not one block. It was split across 3 trades, and he was not alone. The day before, Jane Pierce, managing director of Trust, sold 16,368 shares for $1,011,169, about $61.78 a share. 2 officers, 1 week, same price zone. And in the entire data set today, the cluster buy list is empty. There is no offsetting insider conviction anywhere. For shareholders, the question is not whether one sale is bearish. It is that the flow at this valuation is one-directional. Story 2. A 79% price target increase that still says sell. Goldman Sachs raised its Moderna price target to $120 from $67. The stock closed at $174.38. That is a 31.2% implied downside from the most improved target on the tape. The derivatives told the same story louder. The 2 times long Moderna exchange-traded fund gained 352.09%, and the Yield Max Moderna Option Income Fund gained 169.23%. Reddit mentions hit 605, up 60,400%, the #1 ticker of the day. Tempest AI moved in sympathy. Read it plainly. The sell side is repricing the asset upward while refusing to validate the price. When the marginal buyer is momentum and leverage and no fundamental model supports spot, gap risk runs both directions. Story 3. 4 targets cut in 4 minutes, and everyone still implies upside. BNP Paribas lowered Talen Energy to $560 from $595 against a $323.24 price, 73.2% upside. Vistra to $255 from $282 against $141.38, 80.4%. NRG Energy to $221 from $232 against $117.96, 87.4%. Constellation Energy to $374 from $393 against $271.23, 37.9%. These were trims of 5 to 9%, not downgrades of the thesis. The interpretation: the sell side still models a power demand curve the market simply refuses to pay for. That 37.9 to 87.4% range is the size of the disagreement, not a forecast. To Congress and insiders, Steve Cohen of Tennessee's 9th bought between $100,000 and $250,000 of J.P. Morgan Chase on August 5th. Disclosed August 18th. 13 days, clean. Shri Thanedar of Michigan's 13th sold the same size bracket of Apple on January 9th and disclosed it on August 14th. That is 217 days. Tony Wied of Wisconsin's 8th did something more interesting. On July 14th, he sold Salesforce and bought Upstart Holdings, both in the $15,001 to $50,000 bracket. a same-day rotation out of large-cap software into subprime lending risk. Elsewhere, Martine Rothblatt sold $4,898,000 of United Therapeutics across 10 transactions, and VSE Corporation's chief executive sold $4,243,000 across 8. Earnings were microcap noise, but the misses were extreme. Onfolio reported earnings per share of negative $35.57 against an estimate of negative 11 cents. Bitbrother came in at negative $430 versus negative 17. Chemomab, negative 27 cents versus negative 4 cents. Cosmos Health lost 3 cents against a penny profit estimate on revenue of $18,986,000 versus $19,420,000 expected. The upcoming calendar is entirely offshore. Sinopec and China Merchants Bank on August 21st. Translation: the U.S. tape has no earnings catalyst this week. It trades on macro. Tomorrow, the Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Index for August. Previous, 41.4. Estimate, 25. Consensus is calling for a 16-point collapse in a regional survey that was running hot. A downside surprise there hits the cyclical bid that led today. Also, watch crude. Inventories built 4.405 million barrels against an expected draw of 600,000, which is why energy lagged. Today's theme: quiet indexes, violent internals, and insiders selling into strength. Subscribe for tomorrow's data.